for me today. I'm talking about put some colour in some SBR, or it might be PVA, whatever you use. When you're rolling the ceilings and you're going over the Artex ceilings, it's nice to have something with a bit of a different colour in it, just to see where you've been. Years ago we used to use little bottles of food colouring. You'd put some of that in, and that worked okay, but generally you haven't got food colouring on the van, or you might not be near a shop where you can just go and buy a bottle. And I know they've got some other products come out now. You've got your blue grit, you've got your red render grip, you've got your pink SBR that another plasterer, Kirk, is selling. And I've used a tub of that and it's really good actually. Thoroughly recommend that. But sometimes you want it now, you'll need it like that, you know, you haven't got it. And Kirk stuff is only an online order at the minute. Hopefully it will start making its way into shops like Toolstation, Screwfix, and we can just go and grab a bit. But until then, we've got to make our own little things up. So today I'm going to be adding the most potent colouring I think I've ever known, and that is the old brick dye. You know yourself, if you just put a little drop of that into your mortar mix, it really does get that looking red. So I'm hoping that the same will happen, well I know it will happen, by putting a little drop of that in some PVA or SBR. And then what I shall be doing is painting that on a little bit of plasterboard, and once the stuff's dry I'll skim that bit of plasterboard, and then once that's dry I'll then paint it, because just seeing the colouring on the ceiling and skimming it is only half the story really, because it still needs to be decorated. And what we don't want is that colouring to be so strong it starts bleeding through and drawing into the paint. I've never tried this before, so I'm going to do it as if it was a real job, as if this was a real bit of ceiling. So I'll take you through it. I'll video each time, obviously video this now, and then I'll video me skimming it and see if the skim holds the colouring back, and then we'll give it 2 or 3 coats of emulsion and see if that holds back. And hopefully this could be a nice cheap solution, because you get tons of it in there, and I'm sure you're only going to need a little drop of it. So it could be a good little solution just to add some colour to your PVA or SBR. Anyway, let's get cracking. So I'm just going to use small ratios for this experiment. I won't use the whole tub. I shall just put some in the bottom of this little container. I won't put too much in, so I'll put what have I got to measure it with? Not a lot to measure it, so I'll just put so there's about 1 inch in the bottom of this container, and then for that inch I'm just going to add a teaspoon. Let's get a small teaspoon of the red dye, and we'll chuck that in and give that a good stir. So I'm going to stir it with a brush, and already you can see it's giving it a nice bit of colour. I think I'll add 1 more of them. That was 1 small teaspoon. It was very shallow, so I'm going to have 1 more of them, and that'll equate to like a heaped teaspoon. So okay, let's give that a stir. It's looking nice and pink. And I'm presuming also that the brick dye, because it's a bit dusty, it might even add a tiny little bit of grip to it as well. So there we go. So nice colour. So let's bring a bit of plasterboard over, and we'll give that a little paint. That is a deep colour. So that's 1 heaped teaspoon in that ratio. So I would say maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons would probably go for a whole tub really. I would dye it enough for you. Now that is looking good. So gonna let that dry, and then I'm going to put a bit of skim on it. So hopefully that's going to get us all out of trouble when we need it. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with that. Okay, here in the scientist lab, I've left this for about 15-20 minutes, as if you would as if you was on a real job. I didn't want to leave it overnight and let it completely cure, because most of us will be using it in this situation really. So I've mixed up a little bit of plaster, and it is a little bit, well, in the pot noodle cup. Look, pot plaster. G-Mom, can I have some more? Right, anyway, enough of nonsense. I'm going to chuck this on there and then just let it set. So I'm not going to trail it on properly. I'm just going to spread a thin layer, about the same amount as you would if you was doing the ceiling. I shall just put that over it like that. I'll do it all. I'll cover all 4 corners as if we was on a little square ceiling, just to try and give it the best indication of whether it's going to be a good idea or not. Like I say, I've never done this. I don't know if this is going to work. And I haven't pre-done this for any sort of YouTube content. This is just literally something that's come out of my brain within the last hour. Purely for the fact that it is nice to have something that's a different colour when you're rolling an Artex ceiling, especially some of the big ones. Sometimes you can see with the first coat, because if it's a matte ceiling you can see that it's got a shine to it once you put your stuff on it. But I always give it 2 coats, whether it be SBR or PVA, and sometimes it's hard to know on that second coat if you've been over it or not, because obviously it's already got a shine on it. So there we go, there's like an average skim of plaster on that. So what we're going to do, we're going to let this dry. So I'll probably let it dry for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then I'll do a follow-on video of me putting a mist coat on it and then 2 full coats of white emulsion, and hopefully it will hold back and it won't bleed through. Because I've heard nightmare stories about food colouring doing that, it coming through. It's never happened to me personally, but I suppose it's all to do with the amount you put in it and stuff. So, you know, I hope you've enjoyed the little science experiment, and I'll see you in a few days with part 2.